She told our friends she'd never been happier. Said leaving me was like finally coming up for air. That I was the anchor, and freedom had never tasted so good. And I believed her. I believed she outgrew me. That I was the lesson, not the destination. But when I finally moved on, that freedom she clung to started sounding a whole lot like regret. Her name was Emily. And for 5 years, she was my person. We met at a New Year's Eve party where the music was too loud and the beer was warm. She was in red heels and carried herself like she'd already written the story of her life and just needed someone to read it out loud. I was quieter then. Thoughtful to a fault. She said I made her feel grounded. I said she made me feel alive. It worked, until it didn't. At first, it was just little shifts. She started going out more without telling me. Started answering texts later. Her phone never left her hand, but she always turned its screen down when she set it on the table. I didn't push. I thought space was healthy. I told myself we were evolving. But love doesn't always evolve in the same direction. One night, after a silent dinner where she barely touched her food, she said she didn't feel seen anymore. Said I was a good man but not the right man, not for the life she saw ahead. And like that, it was over. She packed a bag the next morning. Hugged me like a friend. Walked out the door and didn't look back. I didn't chase her. But I wanted to. The months that followed were gray. Not dramatic. Not even devastating. Just quiet. My friends tried to help. Took me out. Reassured me I'd find someone new. That she didn't deserve me. But none of it stuck. Because I wasn't angry, I was hollow. I kept looking around the apartment for signs of her. The candle she lit every night. The plant she always forgot to water. The pink coffee mug that somehow never made it into the box she took with her. I heard from mutual friends that she was thriving. New haircut. New job. A yoga retreat somewhere in Costa Rica. She posted quotes about self-worth and choosing yourself. Her Instagram lit up with sunsets and group selfies and wine on patios with hashtags like #healing and #rebirth. And I stayed quiet. Because part of me hoped she was right. That maybe letting me go really was the best thing she ever did. Then, slowly, I started coming back to myself. I picked up old hobbies. Reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Read books without checking the time. Took long walks with no destination and started sleeping without waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if I should text her. And somewhere along the way, I stopped missing her. Not all at once, but in pieces. The version of her that used to live in my head. She started fading. And in her place, I found me. It was almost a year later when I met someone new. Her name was Kayla. We met through work. She was smart, kind, and had this laugh that made people at nearby tables smile. We didn't fall fast, we fell right. Easy. Natural. No games, no second guessing. I didn't tell anyone at first. Didn't post. Didn't announce. Just, let it be ours. But one evening, a photo slipped through. Just a candid of us at a friend's barbecue. Nothing dramatic. She was leaning into me, smiling. I was looking at her like she was the first day of spring after a long winter. I didn't tag her. Didn't even caption it. But somehow, Emily saw it. 3 days later, I got a message from her. Hey. Been a while. Just wanted to say I'm happy you're doing well. Short. Neutral. Safe. But you could feel the shift. That wasn't just a message. That was a door she'd slammed shut, creaking open again. I stared at that message for a long time. It wasn't anything dramatic. Just a few polite words. But there was weight behind them, a kind of pause in the air. Like someone knocking on a door they used to have a key to. I didn't reply right away. Not out of malice. I just didn't know what she wanted. Was it closure? Curiosity? A test? Eventually, I typed out a simple response. Thanks. I hope you're doing well too. And I left it at that. But she didn't. A day later, another ping. Saw the picture. She seems sweet. Now that was different. That wasn't just politeness. That was her looking. That was her feeling the shift, the same shift I had felt when she first posted about her yoga retreat and her new chapter. But this wasn't about chapters anymore. This was about timing. And timing, I've learned, is the cruelest part of any love story. We started talking again, cautiously, like people walking barefoot through a place they once ran through blindfolded. She asked about work. About how my family was. About whether I still made that ridiculous French toast on Sundays. I asked her how the Costa Rica trip went. She said it was exactly what I needed, and then added. But when I got back, everything felt a little less. That was the first crack. And once it opened, the confession started leaking through. She told me she thought about me more than she let on. That she missed the way I made her laugh when she was having one of her existential spirals. That no one else ever really got her the way I did. That she thought we needed space, but maybe we just needed honesty. Then she said the thing I didn't expect to hear. I thought leaving you would set me free. But all it did was show me what I gave up. And that's when I realized. This wasn't about nostalgia. This was about regret. Not the dramatic, fall-to-your-knees kind. The quiet kind. The kind that wakes you up at 2 a.m. wondering if the life you ran toward was just a more glamorous kind of loneliness. I didn't know what to say. Because what I wanted to say wasn't simple. I wanted to say. You had me. I showed up. I stayed. I tried. And when things got uncomfortable, you left. You dressed it up in growth and finding yourself, but let's be honest, what you found wasn't clarity. It was distance. And now that I'm not where you left me, you're looking back. I told Kayla about the messages. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. She deserved the truth. We were lying in bed, her head on my chest, legs tangled in the sheets, and I said, Emily's been reaching out. She didn't stiffen. Didn't flinch. She just looked at me and said, do you still have feelings for her? I shook my head. No. But there's a part of me that wants her to understand what she lost. Kayla nodded. That's human. But don't let her make you forget what you found. And right then, I knew I'd found something real. Because Kayla didn't try to control the past. She just believed in the present. A week later, Emily asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said no. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted to punish her. But because I finally understood something. You can care about someone without reopening the door they closed. Especially when you've built something better on the other side. I thought saying no to coffee would be the end of it. But closure, real closure, doesn't knock once. It lingers. It circles. It shows up on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the form of a "just thinking of you" text, or a shared memory sent like a breadcrumb. Emily didn't argue when I turned her down. Didn't lash out or guilt me. She just replied. I understand. I hope you're happy. Truly. But the next day, she viewed my story. Then liked a photo from 6 months ago. Then left a comment under a post about a book I was reading, one she once called boring and sad. It was subtle. Respectful, even. But I knew what it was. It was her way of asking. Are you really gone? I talked to Dr. Hill, my therapist, about it. She asked me a question that landed like a punch wrapped in velvet. Why are you still giving her access to a version of you she never made space for? And just like that, I got it. It wasn't that I missed Emily. It was that she was finally seeing me, the man I'd always been trying to be, even when we were together. The version she couldn't wait long enough to grow with. But here's the thing. That version of me, he didn't become who he is because she left. He became who he is because he stayed. He stayed in the work. He stayed through the silence. He stayed when it would have been easier to become bitter. And Kayla? She found me in that moment of self-commitment. She didn't ask for more. She just saw me. Emily posted a long note on her birthday. One of those carousel posts with poetic captions and filtered images of smiling friends, travel, candles, champagne. But the words said more than the pictures. This year taught me that freedom without foundation is just floating. That being unavailable doesn't make you stronger, it just makes you unreachable. I'm learning that presence is a form of love I used to underestimate. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. A few nights later, I ran into her. Totally by chance, a mutual friend's art show, dim lights, ambient music, wine in plastic cups. She looked good. Not glowing like her photos. Just, human. Softer. We spoke. Briefly. Politely. She asked how I was. I said I was good. Then she asked about Kayla. She seems great. I nodded. She is. There was a pause. The kind that only exists between people who know what they've been through, and who they could have been if things had gone differently. Then she said something I'll never forget. You were always becoming this man. I just didn't have the patience to wait for him. And I smiled. Not out of ego. Not out of spite. But because she was finally telling the truth. Later that night, Kayla asked me if seeing Emily stirred anything up. I thought about it. Not because I had doubts. But because honesty deserves more than reflex. Not regret, I said. Just, clarity. Clarity that love isn't about timing, it's about showing up. Not just when things are good, but when they're confusing. When they're slow. When growth is happening so quietly, you almost miss it. Emily left before she could see it. Kayla stayed and watered it. And me? I stopped waiting for someone to recognize my worth. And started living like it wasn't up for negotiation. There's a strange kind of freedom that comes when you finally stop performing. I didn't notice it right away, but it crept in, soft and steady. Like how I stopped checking who viewed my stories. How I stopped rereading old messages or wondering if someone was missing me in silence. One day I realized I hadn't thought about Emily in a week. Then two. And when her name popped up in a conversation, casually, from someone who didn't even know our full history, it didn't sting. It just passed. Like weather. Kayla and I were settling into something that felt like home. Not just comfort, presence. There were no blurred lines, no second guessing. No worrying about whether she was drifting away while telling me everything was fine. She stayed. In the room. In the hard conversations. In the laughter and the stillness. There was one night, it was pouring outside, thunder rolling low like a growl in the distance. I came home late from work, exhausted, soaked from the rain. Kayla met me at the door with a towel and a smirk. Took you long enough. I kissed her, and somewhere in that moment, I felt it. That version of me, the one I used to contort to be what someone wanted, was gone. This version. This one had nothing to prove. Emily texted once more. It was short. I hope you're doing well. Genuinely. I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter. But because silence, sometimes, is the kindest way to say. I've moved on, not just from you, but from needing your validation. A few weeks later, Kayla and I hosted a small dinner. 6 friends. String lights on the patio. A playlist low in the background. Nothing fancy, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, a few bottles of wine. But there was laughter. Storytelling. A warmth in the air that didn't come from the food or the weather. After everyone left, Kayla curled up on the couch beside me, barefoot and tired, hair pulled back, no makeup. "That was nice," she said. "These are the nights I want to remember." And I realized, so did I. Not some grand romantic gesture. Not some story for the ages. Just this, a quiet life, shared with someone who showed up and stayed. Dr. Hill once told me, "The right love won't ask you to earn your place at the table. It'll pull out a chair and say, 'Come as you are.'" That stuck with me. Because that's what Kayla did. She never tried to rescue me. She never tried to rewrite me. She just made space. And I grew into it. One morning, I found an old photo of Emily and me in a drawer I'd forgotten to clean out. We were smiling, arms around each other, some beach trip from years ago. The image was blurry. We looked happy. But looking at it, I didn't feel much. Not anger. Not sadness. Just distance. Like watching a clip from a movie I used to love, but didn't need to rewatch anymore. The next day, I deleted her number. Not in a dramatic way. Not as revenge. Just as a final act of release. Because some people are chapters. Others are footnotes. And some are just the preface to the story you were always meant to write. Growth used to feel like performance. Like I had to show people I'd changed, post the right pictures, say the right things, appear healed in public, even when I was unraveling quietly in private. For a long time, I wasn't healing for me, I was healing so Emily would see what she missed. But somewhere along the way, I stopped needing an audience. And that's when the real peace started. Not the kind you post. The kind you live in. It had been over a year since the breakup. 9 months since I met Kayla. And nearly 2 since I last heard from Emily. Life had found a rhythm. The kind that hums under your days like background music, soft, steady, unnoticed until you realize you're finally tapping your foot to it again. Then came the wedding. Not ours. A mutual friend's. I almost skipped it when I saw her name on the RSVP list. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want to tempt closure that didn't need reopening. Kayla asked me gently. "Do you feel like you still owe her anything?" I shook my head. "No. I just don't know what I'd say if she looked at me like she used to." "Then maybe don't say anything," she said. "Just let her see what peace looks like." We went. Together. Kayla wore a green dress and laughed through most of the reception, talking to strangers like they were old friends. I watched her from across the room more than once, quietly amazed at how light she moved through the world. And then, just after the cake was cut, I saw Emily. She was standing near the bar. Alone. Dress simple. Makeup minimal. She looked older. Not in a tired way. Just in that way people do when they've finally stopped chasing versions of themselves they can't sustain. Our eyes met. And for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing heavy. No sting. No ache. No longing. Just history. She walked over during a lull in the music. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I said back. There was a pause, the kind that used to feel electric. This time, it just felt honest. "You seem good," she said. "I am," I told her. She looked down at her drink. "She seems great." I smiled. "She is." Another beat of silence. Then Emily took a breath like she'd been holding it for months. "I used to think leaving you was the bravest thing I ever did." I nodded slowly. I remembered. She'd said it often. And now? I asked. She hesitated. Now I think maybe staying, even when it got quiet and hard and unfamiliar, would have been braver. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't a conversation. It was a release. Not for me, for her. And I let her have it. When I got back to the table, Kayla looked up and gently raised her eyebrows. I shrugged. Just old echoes, I said. She reached for my hand. Still love her? I shook my head. I loved who I thought she'd be. But I love who you are. And that was the truth. Because love isn't just about who makes your heart race. It's about who holds it steady when the noise fades. That night, after the wedding, Kayla and I lay in bed, her head tucked beneath my chin. The fan whirred above us, the room dark and warm. Do you think she meant it? She asked softly. Yeah, I said. But I think she meant it too late. A funny thing happens when you truly move on. You don't realize it in a grand, sweeping moment. It doesn't hit you while standing on a mountaintop or walking away in slow motion to some emotional soundtrack. It hits you on a Wednesday. Maybe you're making coffee, humming something under your breath. The dog's asleep by the window, sunlight hitting the hardwood just right. And you look around at your life, not some flashy Instagram version, but the real thing, and you think, I made it out. And not just out of heartbreak. Out of needing to be seen by the one who didn't stay. Life with Kayla didn't become some fairy tale ending. We had disagreements. We hit rough patches. We took space when we needed to, communicated imperfectly, learned how to be partners through the messy stuff, not just the highlight reel. But the difference? We never stopped choosing each other. Even on the days it was hard. Especially then. That, I've learned, is what real love is. Not just staying for the fireworks. But staying for the cleanup afterward. It's been 2 years now since Emily left. A year and some change since I last saw her. She's with someone else, from what I've heard. Good for her. Truly. I don't check her social media anymore. I don't ask our mutual friends for updates. Whatever part of me used to want to win the invisible breakup scoreboard, it's gone. Because when peace is real, it doesn't look like revenge. It looks like contentment. We got a house last fall. Kayla and I. Small place. Quiet street. Room for a garden she's always wanted, and a spot on the porch where I like to read in the mornings. One Sunday, while repainting the guest room, she paused and said, Do you think we met each other at the right time? I wiped paint off my forehead and thought about it. I think we met each other when we were finally ready to tell the truth. She smiled. Yeah. That sounds right. If I could say one thing to Emily, not in person, not for drama, just somewhere quiet and honest, it would be this. You were right. Leaving me was the best thing you ever did. Because it gave me back to myself. And it made room for someone who didn't need to change me, just see me. You found freedom. But I found peace. And the thing about peace? It doesn't post itself. It doesn't need to be watched. It just is. Quiet. Real. Steady. And finally, mine.